Okay, Tyler, let's begin with your testimony of faith. How did you come to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Yeah, so it actually started for me whenever I was younger. So I grew up in a home that wasn't exactly a Christian home. Both my parents struggled with addiction, with a couple of different things, and uh, growing up, I mean, that was kind of part of everyday life for me. Just kind of got used to it, and it's pretty cool, kind of looking back on the story and kind of reflecting back on it. We had some of our neighbors of mine, their parents brought over to us a box of Thanksgiving food. It was around the Thanksgiving time of year. Knocked on our door, invited us to church, and for me, I always thought that church was for weddings and funerals.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of what those buildings were for. It was for those two things. And next thing I know, after they had invited us to church, that we were going, and we were going on Sunday mornings. And we were going pretty frequently, and I was in middle school, early middle school around that time. And I remember after going there for a while, remember specifically around August, July, going into my eighth grade year, I remember hearing the gospel and understanding the gospel, comprehending the gospel that I was a sinner and that I needed a savior and that Jesus was that savior. And not long after that, I was baptized. Began to kind of get interested in what the Bible had to say and to get interested in reading the Bible for the first time in my life. And then, throughout high school, being able to serve in FCA and being able to do those things, it was great to have people around me that were also believers and helped me grow in my faith. And it's that's really where it kind of started for me, was around that time. And I think even me as a teacher and as a coach now, specifically with that middle school group, high school group, I think it's why I'm so kind of, I guess, drawn to that age group, is because that is a pivotal time in people's lives that they really start to form who they are, personally, start to develop some of those personal characteristics. And I know that for me, that was a huge time of it. And that's when I was saved and was baptized, and being able to reflect on that has been pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it was as simple as a Thanksgiving meal offered by the
It
church.
was, yeah.
And
It was a box of food. It had the frozen turkey in it with the canned corn and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And they brought it to us, and yeah, and ever since then we started going to church, and I think it obviously had an impact on my parents as well. I remember specifically that night, my dad, he was too drunk to get out of his chair, out of his recliner. We were watching WWE wrestling, as a matter of fact. So we were sitting there. I remember sitting there on the floor and turning around, and mom, and then handing mom this box of food and inviting us to church. And next thing I know, we're going. So yeah, it's so a little small act that oftentimes, when it comes to evangelism, we tend to think it's big extravagant events. Sometimes it's just an invitation.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's what it takes, and that's how my story went also.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the how the Lord uses some of the simplest gifts.
yeah.
We never know when we serve the Lord how He's going to use that long term.
Hmm.
So I mean, some of those people who did that, they may not even be alive now, but
Yeah,
the legacy of that offering, that's amazing. So you come to faith in middle school era, and then you become a minister later. So
yeah,
how do you go from a young disciple to that call of
sure.
ministry?
Yeah, like I said, being in high school and kind of serving, I guess, in a very small sense in like FCA and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, was a great experience. Being surrounded by other believers was pretty awesome. But then, college comes around, and just as most college kids, you kind of drift away from it a little bit. Fortunately, I had a woman in my life, that I still have in my life, that really kept me grounded and really kept me focused on the Lord. And we got married pretty early. And while we were in college, actually, I was 20 years old, she was 21, and by God's grace, she wanted us to get back into going to church. There was some years where, being college kids and whatever else, that we kind of got away from attending a church. So we started going to church again, once we got married, and was really starting to kind of, if you want to say, fall back in love with God all over again.
Hmm.
And then from there, bounced around all over the place, lived in several different places, and we ended up, to make a long story short, ended up in Lebanon, Tennessee. And once we ended up down there, got plugged into a fantastic, awesome church down there, and was really starting that. That's when I started to kind of feel what I call like a pull into ministry. Is that it wasn't necessarily, I wasn't going after it or anything like that, but there would be people that make comments to me about like, hey, you should, teach this class or you should do this or, that kind of thing. So I reached out to the pastor and I was like, I'm kind of feeling this. Honestly, don't know what to do about it. I'm not sure where it's going or anything like that, but would you be willing to sit down with me and kind of help me out and figure this stuff out? And even before that, with COVID, I think that's had such a, we oftentimes kind of think about the negative side of COVID, and there was a lot of it or whatever else, but there's also a lot of positives that specifically for me in my life, that's when I really started to do some true deep dive studies into scripture to kind of begin to, again, by God's grace, try to do my best of understanding what the Bible was about. And so as we were going into Lebanon, which would have been around 21, 22, somewhere around those years, um, began, like I said, feeling that pull into ministry. Sat down with him, and we explored all kinds of different options. And he, of course, doing the great pastoral thing that he does, was presenting several different ideas to me, like international ministry, domestic ministry, and even leading a local church, whatever else. Just kind of put some feelers out for me, just to see what I thought about it. And then it was funny because he mentioned church planting, and my first kind of thought was, Owenton, hometown, would be an awesome place for somebody else to plant a church. Like that'd be a great place. It'd be cool for somebody else to do that. That's not really for me, but if somebody else was going to do it, that'd be cool to kind of be able to do that. So, again, to make a long story short, we just kind of continued to pray about it, continue to look into it. And one night at dinner, Becca, she mentioned to me like, because at the time, it'd be pretty cool if Owenton had a church, kind of like what the one we had down there in Tennessee. In fact, yeah, that would be pretty cool. She had no idea that we had that conversation with our pastor up to that point, and we had made the difficult decision to move back home,
Mhm.
and that idea of church planting, the idea of ministry was still there. It was still kind of in the back of my mind. Um, so reached out to Toby DeHay, who was with KBC at the time, and just to kind of see what kind of options there were with that, and continue to follow that track down the trail, and ended up, we can get into it a little bit more, but ended up getting into church planting, and the thing that I thought would be good for everybody else
Yeah,
was ended up being what God was actually calling me to do, which was pretty cool. So
there they are, Lord, send them.
yeah,
It's,
exactly right.
it's,
Yeah,
it's the
they're over
way,
there. They're over there.
yeah,
They'd be great for
yeah,
him. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
So a few weeks ago here at East Frankfort, we began our study of Elisha, looking at his call as a good example of how calling actually works. And you describe exactly what Elisha went through, an internal call, this sort of wrestling, like what is this? What are these thoughts? What are these feelings I've got? Is it something I really want? Would I be content doing something else? All those things. And then the Lord has a way of, as you're getting those, those wrestlings, there's the external call where the church says, "Hey, we kind of need someone filling for Sunday school.
Yeah,
Could you help us our men's discipleship, something like
right.
that?" And then over time, the church sort of affirms and sees something in you
Yeah,
that maybe you haven't shared with anyone, maybe your wife, and then you start to put the pieces together.
yeah.
And then, as you said, that you could see a need in Owenton,
Hmm.
and someone should fill that need. And over time, that
Yeah,
internal and external call keeps going.
yeah,
Now,
for sure.
it's the way the Lord works. And so, if you don't have the internal call but the external, then not yet.
Right.
If you have the internal call but not the
Not
external,
necessarily. Yeah,
not yet.
yeah,
Trust the Lord's timing.
for sure.
Well, I want to get back to church planting.
Hmm.
So I had the same calling. I was young, went to Owenton County, and I at first wanted to be a youth guy, not a youth minister. I
Mm.
want to do youth rallies, revivals. I want to be that guy. I want to do all the youth camps because that was my favorite part of ministry that I
Yeah,
saw.
it's fun. Yeah,
It's
good
fun.
time. Yeah,
I wanted to go out with the teenagers,
right.
play Gaga ball, whatever it is. But when I started school, that changed. But I had the same call, but but it did not take me long to realize I belonged in a local church as you do.
Yeah.
But where our the Lord's taken us differently is I wanted an established church
Yeah.
because I would not be a good church planter. I lack a lot of the skill sets and the vision necessary. But you went into the direction of church planting.
Yeah.
So what made you want to go into church planting as opposed to a more established church?
Yeah, I don't know if wanting to go into it was really kind of the plan from the beginning. Like I said, it was something I envisioned somebody else doing. It had been awesome for somebody else to do. And actually, when we first moved to Owenton, there were some churches that were looking for a pastor. So I put my name in the hat and went through the process with a couple of the churches, and I got the Providence. Some didn't work out, some I decided to pull my name out of, just because it really got to a point where if I didn't at least attempt to plant the church in Owenton, then it almost felt like some disobedience.
Hmm.
Like I feel like there's such a strong call, such a strong feeling towards for trying this out that like I've got to at least try it because I don't want to look back on my life, 10, 15, whatever years from now and think back like, wow, what could God have done through that?
Mm.
And it's a missed opportunity. So it was literally a leap of faith. Like it's like let's try it. Let's see. At any point, if God feels like it doesn't want this to happen, then He'll stall it out. Like we're going to put 100% this out there. And again, it wasn't necessarily something I was striving or ambitious to do. So it's like
Mhm.
let's try it. And by God's again providence that He has continued over time, over the past 3 or 4 years to provide for us.
Mhm.
So provide not only with building and with all this kind of stuff, but provide for us most importantly spiritually. That
Mhm.
He continues to draw us back to Him. He continues to draw us back to His Word and continues to put things in place that we can continue on to. I mean, there for a while. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, within the first year, it's like we may not meet again this Sunday. Like this might be our last one, but He continued to provide. So I guess as far as to answer the question, what kind of got me into it, it was really the fact that if I didn't try it, then I would have felt, you know, almost a sense of disobedience and probably some now knowing what I know now, definitely some regret later on
Yeah.
that would have been hard to swallow.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Seminaries are full of guys who felt that call,
Mhm.
that thought, maybe not yet,
Yeah.
and then they've wasted some of their best years in disobedience, and
Yeah.
so they're running the seminary trying to get that training. Yeah,
Mhm.
and this is how we met. Because I've known your wife and her
Sure.
whole family for years,
Yeah.
growing up in the same town. Is that you were in that early process
Hmm.
working with the Kentucky Baptist Convention to plant a church, but you were in need of a sending church.
Yeah.
And so us being in a neighboring county, and me being an Owen County boy in that neighboring county, so the proximity worked.
Sure.
Um, and and that was something we've been wanting to do here at East Frankfort Baptist Church is we are the product of a church plant.
Hmm.
So our home church, our the founding church, Crestwood Baptist Church, founded 10 years before us, just a mile up the road here. They had grown too big, and they took a little over 80 people and they planted another church.
Yeah.
And the goal was that we're going to keep reaching people, and
For
then we're going
sure.
to plant a church. And
Yeah.
that is the Acts model.
Mhm.
We plant a church to
Absolutely.
plant a church.
Yeah.
And the churches that plant churches work the best. We're fortunate we have a convention, state and national level,
Hmm.
that can come along and help us as well. So when the opportunity came to hear your vision and whatnot, I was really excited.
Yeah.
It's my hometown, so I love my hometown, and I have long been convinced that we do not have a problem with too many churches.
Right.
We
Yeah.
have a problem we don't have enough.
Hmm.
So in Franklin County, well over 80%, closer to 85% of the county is lost.
Yeah.
So if every church in our association of Baptist
Hmm.
churches reached 1% of our county, they would grow by over 500 people.
Yeah.
So if you got that influx of people at all of our churches, small, medium, and large, we could not house the people, and over half of this county is still lost.
Yeah.
So it's an overwhelming amount of work that has to be done.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, well, we've got enough churches in this area, that area, it really is we need more churches reaching more people, and hopefully the Lord will give his blessing to that. Well, what is the story behind planting Reconciled in
Yeah.
particular? We share a little bit how we met, but you've come to Owen County.
hmm
So how what were those early days of we're going to plant, we're going to meet here? What are some of those early days?
Yeah. So once we moved back home, and with it being like his hometown, it was it was interesting. Like I said, I kind of put my name into the hat of some other churches that were looking for pastors. And meanwhile, I was also still working with the Kentucky Baptist Convention to see what kind of things they offered for. And I was honestly completely clueless to cooperative program, nothing. Like I literally knew nothing. I was just knew I was in Kentucky now, and church planting was on my mind, and that's literally the basis of what any of my Google searches, kind of came to.
Yeah.
So, was yeah, so was in the process of working through with the application process with some other churches, and like I said, by God's providence, they either didn't work out, and felt the need to kind of draw my name out of it, and then continue to pursue this church planting idea, and with the help of Kentucky Baptist Convention, not just financially, but spiritually, and with encouragement and those kind of type of things. It started to the pieces of the puzzle started to kind of
Mhm.
fall together. That's like this might actually happen. Like this might be something that we can do. And so one of the big things was where are we going to meet?
Mhm.
So going around town and just trying to find places. I talked to our superintendent, a couple people within the school about meeting in the school because I know that there's a lot of really good church plants that have been able to establish themselves in the school,
Mhm.
set up early Sunday morning, break down after service, and it's almost like you were never there. So that was our plan. So let's do that. And uh, again, by God's providence, it didn't quite work out for us to do that. So it's like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. And maybe it's in our living room, maybe it's whatever. It's like, well, if we end up having an influx of people, like we're going to quickly grow out of that. Like we don't have a huge living room, we can fit my family plus a few others. So that's probably not necessarily practical either. But there was a building that was in a parking lot of a factory there in Owenton, and we actually approached the factory owners because they own the building also, to rent that building out. I mean, it was a small little building, wasn't huge or anything, probably like 1,500 square foot. I mean, it was good enough for what we were looking
Mhm.
for. And that building actually was already agreed to lease out by God's grace. It was Hope Lives Pregnancy Center, who's still there. Great ministry that we love to support, and Kelly's doing a great job there. Um, but whenever I met with the factory owners, they were like, "Well, this building is leased out already. However, we may have some space in here where you guys might be able to meet." So they gave me a tour of the building, tour of the facility, and their lunchroom was a cafeteria that was pretty long ways, and they opened it up to us to use. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, how much would you guys let us use? How much would you charge to let us use this space? And they said completely free.
Nice.
We'll give you a key. We'll give you access to it, and come in Sunday morning, Saturday night, set it up, and just break it down, and you're good.
Yeah.
So like that in and of itself was like, okay, right, this is obviously a God thing because that wasn't even an option. That wasn't even on the list of possibilities of places that we could meet. So we met there for a while. Ended up moving over to their office area, which was about the same size space. Um, but we ended up moving there just because it was a little more practical for us. And then over time, the company that owned the building, the factory, ended up unfortunately going out of business.
Mhm.
So this took place it would have been around Easter of 2025. Yeah, so it was last year. So we were there for a good, I mean, probably a year and a half. Is where we were there. So it was Easter Sunday. I actually remember having the conversation, and Easter Sunday they let me know that hey, we're going out of business.
Mhm.
You guys have till basically the end of the month to try to find a spot. So me being a human of the flesh,
Yeah.
immediately panicked. I was like, oh crap, well, this is it. We're done. So, but by God's grace, he continued to provide, and so that's where, and about within a couple weeks, we had our last service in the factory building, and uh, through some networking of people within the church, Farm Bureau the insurance company, they have an office space that's right across the road from where we were meeting, and they opened up their basement area for us to come in and use temporarily. Again, I asked them, how much would you guys charge? Completely free. All right, you guys come in, just breakdown, set up, gave me a key, everything. So it's like, okay, God's continuing to put the pieces together for us, and then to kind of get us to where we're at now. Um, it's again pretty cool, and it's a 100% a God thing. But even now, where we're leasing the building that we're leasing is currently uh, it's up for sale, but it's currently being leased by us. We moved into it by in July of last year. That the owners, they are owners of the daycare, local daycare there in Owenton, and they had just moved their facility. We reached out to them about leasing it, and they agreed to it, and we've been able to be in there ever since. So as far as the building itself
Mhm.
is has been an incredible kind of story in and of itself, but really just the people too. I mean, because that's what the church is.
Mhm.
It's we can sit here and we can tell the story, and it is a huge part of what the story of Reconciled Church is how God has provided a place for us to meet every single time. He's never failed us, never let us down, and but really it's the people that God has called. Um, a group of people together that we assemble regularly for the purpose of worshiping Him, whether it's at the park, which we've done before,
Mhm.
Sunday night Bible study, Wednesday night, whatever, whether it's on our front yard, in the living room, whether we're in the basement of a insurance building, in a office of a factory, or in a church now, a church building now. He's called this group of people together, and he's been faithful throughout the whole process. So, um, but even like I said, I mentioned, Kentucky Baptist Convention, that through the cooperative program, they have been literally from a financial perspective, and again, far more than that, but we have been able to be sustained financially because of the cooperative program. Like it is, we quite literally, are still going today because God has provided for us through that program, and just the encouragement that has come from KBC, and of course from you guys.
Mhm.
East Frankfort has been a huge help. You've been a huge help for me. You taught me off the ledge a few times whenever I've
Yeah.
been ready to just throw it in, and whether you know it or not, it's been a huge encouragement for me as well. So really the whole, I guess, story of Reconciled Church can kind of be summed up in the fact that God continues to provide for us.
Mm. Yeah.
Like right when we think we're going to be done, when we think we're at the end, He continues to put that step out for us again. We continue to step out, and He puts it there for us.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty awesome to see His faithfulness throughout the whole process is been really cool. So
That's amazing. I'm,
yeah,
I'm, I'm glad to hear that. And I remember that one of those early services in the factory.
oh yeah,
It was a good location. You had a
hmm
great kids area,
yeah,
good space set up there. My family and I, we all went. We really enjoyed it there. We took a little break here at East Frankfort to go see, and I've really enjoyed that. Well, I think most pastors have sort of like where the church is, and where you want to see the church go.
mhm.
Sort of big picture. Where would you like the church to be in a year, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I think any pastor obviously wants to see the church grow spiritually. Like we want to see that growth, that we have a group of people that love God, love His Word, love to study His Word. So I think first and foremost, far outside any of the material things, that's what we want to see. We want to see people grow closer to God and be more like Christ. But even within that, I mean, do we eventually want to own our own building? We eventually want to be able to support other church plants, or maybe even, I would love to be able to even potentially host a group to go plant another church
Mm,
somewhere within, Northern Kentucky or whatever else. Maybe even establish a network within the Louisville, Lexington, Cincinnati kind of triangle
mhm.
of church plants that are within that area. So I would love for, with Owenton kind of being an hour from those three locations, it'd be a great kind of hub point for that to be able to continue to support the necessary mission of planting churches would be awesome. But first and foremost, like I said, I think it's just the desire to see our people grow in the Word, see our people grow in Christ, and to be bold in their faith and to be bold in the truth. I think is far exceeds any of the extra stuff. And I think with that will come the other things
Yeah.
that we'll see the support for the church plants and be able to support international and domestic ministries and those type of things. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And
Yeah.
I'd love to see that continue to grow just from a little small place
Yeah.
in Owenton.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Lord can do it.
absolutely.
He can, he likes to take the little and make a lot out of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, well, you've been pastoral ministry for a few years now, and my experience has been I love being a pastor. I wouldn't want to be anything
Mhm.
else, but it is a uniquely odd job, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term. And you've worked in secular world. So what have you learned particularly about pastoral ministry that say someone new to ministry could benefit from?
Sure. Yeah, that's so honestly, I mean, there's so many things that really stand out to me, but I think the biggest thing, the biggest lesson for me, I think within the whole short amount of time that I've been in ministry, I think whenever I was younger, which really was that long ago, whenever I was newer, I guess is probably a better way of saying it. Um, it's almost embarrassing to admit it now, but I kind of had too much of the pressure on myself.
Hmm.
You know, when it comes to ministry, we are simply, you know, we're stewards of what God has blessed us with. So I was almost arrogantly kind of taking it upon myself to be the one to have to go out and do this, to do that. It's all on me to make sure that this works. And it was foolish, is what it was. And so as a pastor and as a planter, these were it was those moments, kind of putting all that unnecessary pressure on myself to do all these things. And recently, and looking back on it, reflecting back on it now, I can see how I've changed, year after year, and
Hmm.
it's been by force, by God, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Seeing how God has continually, provided for us, it's like it's not me. It's not, yes, I'm going to be obedient to what he's called me to do. Yes, I'm going to continue to pastor and steward, the flock that he's given me. But at the same time, it's his church.
Hmm.
Like it's his people. Like these are not people. These are not, anything like that. It's not my church. I'm just simply trying to be as faithful to what he's given me as I possibly can. So that has been really the biggest takeaway has been, understanding my place in
Hmm.
this, and that it's just saying, yes, it's an important position, but it's not mine.
Yeah.
I'm just called to be faithful with what he's given me, and if I can be faithful, then he'll take care of the rest. So that's really been the biggest takeaway I've got from it.
It's insightful. I could be guilty of we want to be content and ambitious.
Yeah,
Often that just looks like discontentment.
yeah,
So to be content with the congregation you have while ambitious to keep moving forward with your
right.
congregation. You want more programs, you want more opportunities, you want to reach more people, you want to keep going. But then who you have before you on Sunday morning are the ones the Lord has drawn
Yeah,
to the church, not to you, but to the church.
yeah,
And to find contentment in that, it's I struggle with the same thing. Um, I think early on, whenever you even started, we talked about one of the things I like to talk about with new ministers and young ministers is depression, ministerial depression.
sure, yeah,
It is unique in many ways. In even if things are going well, it's about 6 months into it.
yeah.
It's going to hit you.
Hmm.
It's going to hit you.
It does.
And I'm not someone who struggled with that until I became a minister.
Hmm.
And and then it still reels up like, what is this? Where did it come from?
Yeah,
What is wrong with me? And then you kind of have to like, this is a spiritual battle. Um, what did you expect? And you need to address it. And being content and ambitious is the sweet spot. And
yeah,
that's a spiritual
yeah,
thing. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on here
yeah.
and talking
I
with me.
appreciate it.
I think our people really love to hear again the story of how things began, how the Lord's led you here. And I'm really excited about what the Lord's going to do in my beloved hometown. I love Owen County. I want to see it in Franklin County be radically transformed by the power of the gospel,
Absolutely.
and then watch what happens. So, well, thank you, man.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. Thank you very much.